On the record. Commissioner? What was
I thought we were proceeding to the second stage of the hearing at this point. Is that what we're doing?
I'm sorry?
Choices. You could rule on the first motion and then proceed to the second part. You could proceed to the second part and act at the end. You have choices.
Then let's proceed to the second part.
That's fine, I'll do whatever you want to do. With certain limits.
This is the revising.
So I think for this document,
Anything I don't see.
I'll have her see. Can she stay in the room?
She said, I don't plan on talking, I plan on talking over here. Go ahead.
You said,
Yes.
back there.
Oh, absolutely. So, like, do you see?
Yeah, there's a ledge right back there.
sorry. All right, so we are gonna. Okay, we are gonna mark this as motion hearing 1, Narragansett. And just, I know we're using National Grid and Narragansett interchangeably, but this contract's actually between Narragansett, the Narragansett Electric Company, DBA National Grid, and where it's a regional procurement and Mass Electric has entered into agreement, Eversource. I like to use Narragansett Electric in this filing for purposes of the exhibits. So again, this will be a motion hearing Narragansett Exhibit 1 for identification right now. And Mr. Addis, if you could explain what this is. And again, this part of the hearing was prompted by a memorandum that I sent out on August 5th regarding, and it's on the Commission's own motion, regarding not whether certain information is confidential or is subject to the exemption in the Access to Public Records Act, but whether or not a broad brush was taken to areas of confidentiality. And so with that, Mr. Abbott, if you'd like to explain what...
I just wanted to state for the record that I checked with Mr. Habib. Ms. Jameson can stay in the room during this portion, but she is seated in the rear, not at council table, because I have an unredacted portion of the testimony.
And just one more thing, for everybody on the commission, this is marked as confidential, so we need to ensure, because there is more than one copy out there, that we keep our copy protected.
Thank you. And what I will do, certainly, I will go through the document that we just passed around. And it was discussed between National Grid and Algonquin. And so, Council for Algonquin, if it comes to questions about why something still needs to be redacted, we do our best collectively to talk that through. And I do want to apologize. We did bring a witness from National Grid, but she does, unfortunately, she's at Hicksville, New York, and she needs to catch the ferry back. So she's probably going to leave the room, but we will endeavor to do our best here and make sure to get your questions answered. So the first, we basically just tried to go down the pages and attachments of the memo that was sent around last week. And so we'll start on page 25 of the Brennan O'Lockett testimony. And that section of the testimony talks about the key aspects of the A&E agreement. And the first section is cost and cost caps. And so what you see in front of you, marked in writing, are the discrete references to the negotiated rate, the cost cap above the negotiated rate, and the cost floor below the negotiated rate, where the costs of this project can adjust. And that was what's being protected. So whereas I redacted finally blocked out the whole paragraph, we're going to reveal the rest of the context of the paragraph and just surgically redact those discrete items. Page 26, anything that is not marked is going to be unredacted. So that means the first line 1 and line 2 will be unredacted. Line 12, the right of first refusal information, what will be redacted is that which is marked and not the whole section as was redacted in the initial file. Starting on line 14, exactly. So the first lines 14 to 16, and then starting again on line 18 after the phrase extension rate.
So just the bracketed part.
Exactly, the bracketed or boxed. Exactly, correct. So that
I just have a question.
Sure.
So the information in 14 to 16 that's proposed to be redacted,
Yes.
Is that unique to what might happen generally?
The answer to that is yes. It is relatively unique. While we understand it's not as concise a price term as, say, for example, a dollar amount, it is essentially a mechanism for arriving at the price term. If you reveal the mechanism, you reveal the price. It's something we don't love.
And on line 20, 4 words in to where the crossed out bracket is.
Yes.
Is that a unique thing? Like the words that start 4 words in.
It is. The whole mechanism itself is relatively unique.
Okay. On the next page, I noticed that what's in the bracketed terms on line 8 to 9, well, not terms, words, sorry, those appear elsewhere in several places, like those And I'm just curious why it's important to keep it confidential here, whereas those might not be confidential in other places. Like, what's special about this provision where that needs to be confidential, whereas in other places it doesn't matter?
Council, without, and if you want to, if you would allow us time to find where those references are elsewhere on the public record, I'm happy to try to do a comparison.
Alan, do you remember where we saw that on Friday? We talked about it though, right? We talked about it though.
Yeah.
Maybe a portion of that was not confidential in the rest of it. So is it your position that that should be, that what's in those brackets should be confidential everywhere?
They should be confidential everywhere.
Okay.
If we somehow missed that and there's an inconsistency, we will do our best to resolve it. But
It could be that I looked at a portion of that too quickly. So we'll just move on at this point.
so the lines 8 and 9 on page 27, as you pointed out, Council, and then lines 14 and 15 in the brackets, proposed to keep redacted. But unredact the rest of the description of these provisions of the contract, of the testimony, I'm sorry, which are also in the contract. So then we jump to page 28 and line 8, which goes back to that same cost and cost cap slash floor information that we've given previously. And I think that was it in the testimony that, oh, I'm sorry, page 37 and 38. Yes, on page 37 and 38, there's,
I think we only have 37.
Yeah.
oh, okay. Oh, good, yes. So, on page 37, we would, lines 11, 12, 13, discrete negotiated price, negotiated rate terms would be protected. And then everything on page 38 would be and page 31 also, I think you had identified a section of 31 with a description of storage and service charges, where the charges themselves were indicated, but the categories of charges were redacted. We will redact that also on page 31.
Okay, and while we're on that, could you look at page 30 of the book? For whatever reason, when there's charts in the testimony, they're incredibly fuzzy. We were wondering if we could just make a request right now to get clearer charts.
Absolutely.
Because we're having a hard time with
And so were there, Council, I know in response to PUC 1-2, we provided a couple. Are there others that I think that maybe weren't in that information request?
I don't know that we have this particular one. I don't think I asked for this particular one. I know we need the chart on page 30.
Okay.
And then the chart on page 17, I think we asked for an update, but we didn't get the, let's see. I'm looking here. All right, so PUC 1-7 looked at page 17, and I believe, yes, I believe when we asked for please provide a new chart updating the chart on page 17, we got the new chart. I think we were looking for an extension of the old chart, which would have then cleared up the chart that's in the filing. So if you could either refile the chart on page 17
And
so that extend it, or file it and we've got the other one. But for all of the charts in here, if we could just get clean copies.
Yes. I'm sorry, yes, it's the Brennan Alaka testimony. No, not at all.
I think we're on to the precedent agreement now?
Yes, the proceed, Sure.
So 31 and 38 are completely inactive.
yes.
Okay.
And so will you be giving us those pages?
Yes, what we intend to do is refile, the exhibit we sent around was really for discussion, so we can just walk through it. We certainly plan on refiling consistent with these revised redactions.
Perfect.
Yes. The proceeding agreement at 8, which is exhibit TJB/JEA-1. The entire page we will unredact. So right now, the substantial part of that page is redacted, which talks about options in the event that the pipeline is not fully subscribed. That will be unredacted.
I'm sorry, Jack.
I apologize,
Sure.
I lost.
Page 8, I'm sorry, of the PA. I'm sorry, there's no line numbers here, so it's more
Okay.
limited. Everybody, okay? Page 9, what is currently redacted at the bottom of page 9 is the primary term extension paragraph. Sorry, one second. So we're going to unredact that whole paragraph. So except for, apologies. Sorry, one more. Apologies. When I copied the agreement, I might have, hold on one second. Bear with me one second, we have electronic. So while we bring it up electronically, I'm just going to look at news council's version. So there is on page 10 of the agreement.
So page 9 is all public?
So page 9 would still be protected actually. So after the word primary term extension, that beginning clause on page 9 would stay protected. through the middle of the third line on page 10. That next sentence,
Through the middle of the third line, so where the period is?
yes, exactly, so that was the redacted. So where it starts, customer may, that would be unredacted. Until the phrase, 4 lines further down, expiration of the primary term, that would be unredacted. The next clause to the period would be redacted. And then the last sentence would be unredacted.
Okay, so slow down.
Sure.
All right, so on page 10, 3 lines down, at the end of that sentence, in the middle of the line is redacted.
Correct.
And customer,
That's starting at 15.
it's at the end of, it's right before customer, right?
Correct.
So the sentence that ends right before customer is 3 lines down from the top of line 10, in the middle. Page.
It's essentially the first full sentence of subsection C. would be redacted.
Sorry, I was looking at the next.
Oh, right, then I apologize.
Okay, so then customer starts the unredacted
Correct.
down to the semicolon.
Right, the phrase expiration of the primary term, semicolon, which is 4 lines after the,
That semicolon is unredacted.
is unredacted.
Then the next word starts redacted.
Exactly, through the end of the sentence.
Okay, so what is unredacted will read, you read what's unredacted.
Yes. Customer may, at its option, extend the primary term for 100% of the MDTQ and MSQ, either 5 or 10 years, each a primary term extension, provided the customer notifies pipeline of such extension at least 3 years prior to the expiration of the primary term.
Okay.
Could I interrupt for just a minute?
Yes.
I appear to have a copy that is appropriately marked.
Yes, unfortunately, I think I gave it all my appropriately marked copies and left myself with one that was not appropriately marked.
Here, take mine back, please.
Oh, Jack. This is mine. And what I will do is I will give your chairperson.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Could I also ask, are we going to mark the preceding agreement? Or we mark the testimony excerpts?
We marked the whole thing,
So these are both part of one?
one package. So this is all part of one.
Okay.
Apologize for that confusion. Should I continue? And just to reiterate, the last sentence of subsection C that starts the applicable rates during the term, that would be under here.
So that final sentence.
That final sentence, exactly. The renewal provision, oh, sorry, apologies.
Just at the,
Can I give you an unmarked one?
Absolutely.
oh wait, that top one.
Right, you didn't.
This is just.
Okay, so page 10, I think we're on renewal. Has anything changed in renewal?
We will unredact what's been redacted in the renewal section, so that will be all unredacted. That's page 10.
and then the next thing is on page 14, and I believe that would remain redacted in line with what we discussed earlier, those words.
Yes, correct.
All right, so one of the Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I apologize, yes. The next item, the next page that you identified was page 22.
Wait, I'm sorry, could you go back to page 16?
Certainly.
There's something redacted on the corrected copy that's not redacted in the redacted version. In about the middle of the page on 16, under section little a, pipelines, conditions, proceeding, the first line following that has something redacted that is not redacted, and the unredacted copy of
Right, the only thing that is redacted on the filed copy is in little 3I.
Yes. So, so there'll be no changes to page 16 of the redacted version of the filing. So that item under sub 7, sub A, sub I, that date is unredacted and remain unredacted. But the date in sub triple I would remain redacted. And the items on page 17 would remain redacted. The item on 18 would remain redacted. The item on 21 would remain redacted. Items on 21, I'm sorry, would remain redacted. The item on page 22 that's covered.
I didn't say this was going to be easy.
So the item on page 22 is the last sentence of subparagraph, sorry, it goes back a little bit further, 9B. I did not hear back, unfortunately, from National Grid on that provision. And so right now I'd like to keep it redacted, but certainly if they agree to unredact it when we file a compliance filing, I will note that in the record. I just had not had a chance to get a final word on that from National Grid.
So without indicating what it is, could you explain why that particular provision would be confidential?
Yeah,
And to the company in particular,
Sure.
not to Algonquin?
Yes, I mean, it's safe to say that this provision talks about termination options of the contract. And so that specific sentence is a specific situation where the company would have a termination decision to make. That it does not believe, at least when filing the agreement among the company wasn't comfortable revealing that to the public. Because it basically was a provision that if other entities were to come into this agreement and negotiate something with Algonquin, they wanted that termination option to be sensitive to National Grid's competitive interests. If other entities were to understand that termination option, there was a possibility that a deal, if this one were to fail, and a new deal were to be bid on by other parties, and maybe National Grid would try again, obviously, that they wanted that to be something that was specific to National Grid and not if other parties have knowledge of. So I know that's a little bit vague, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to discuss it with them, because that was the original reason back a month ago why they wanted to protect it. But I want to discuss it further with them to see whether or not they might be willing to have it unredacted. The item on page 24 that's redacted would stay redacted. Items on page 26 that are redacted would remain redacted.
I think the next, okay, so 26 would remain, or so 26 was one of the ones that I had a question about. Oh, I guess the question was the words I don't know if if that's a term of art, if that means something specific. Like that, why that particular thing is.
I understand it from my client, this is a term that is not regularly incorporated in their agreements. For that reason, they don't want other parties trying to negotiate for similar terms.
I believe the next items are on page 50, if I'm correct. And the top of that page is titled Statement of Negotiated Rates. Everybody there?
No, did you say page 50?
50 of 67 of the redacted version. I know there's, in the version that I've sent around, it may not be paginated, which is at this point of the document, which is why I wanted to note that the title on the page is called Statement of Negotiated Rates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So it's about 4 pages past attachment B, retail market share. Right? Am I right?
Yes.
And
Where it says, so there's a page that says attachment B,
Yep.
and it's about 4 pages after that. Or it is 4 pages after that.
And it is actually attachment C, which is, and that cover page is 2 pages prior to page 1.
Third page attachments.
how are you calling attachment?
The
It says attachment C, right on that page.
So under the term of negotiated rate section, that will be completely unredacted. Under the MDTQ section, the decatherms that are currently redacted will be unredacted. Under the MSQ line, the phrase would be unredacted so that it would note that 460,800 decatherms on the phase 4 service commitment date is what is the MSQ. Under reservation rate, the reservation rate would remain redacted, the negotiated reservation rate. Under the extension reservation rate on the bottom, the first 3.5 lines to the words "one of the following" would be unredacted. And then after the following, that phrase, the remainder of that section would continue to be redacted. As would Part B on the next page, continue to be redacted. Part C, the first 3 lines would be unredacted, up to the phrase, if applicable, customer will. But the last 2 lines would remain redacted. In Part D, the first line would be unredacted. In the second line, the first 3 words, so the words in the primary term in the second line will be unredacted. But the remainder of that sentence would be redacted. The sentence after the end of that sentence that starts, "in the event that customer," would be unredacted. So the sentence, "in the event that customer is unwilling to extend the primary term for either 5 or 10 years" is unredacted. The remainder of that subsection, however, would remain redacted. Subsection E would remain redacted in its entirety. On the next page, just one moment. So this page would remain under non-storage primary receipt points. Those items would remain redacted. Under storage primary receipt points, where it says 28,800 decatherms per day on the phase, right now, number 4 is redacted, that will be unredacted. But under primary delivery points, the volumes that are redacted will continue to remain redacted. On the next page, the volumes under SEMA G system that are redacted will remain redacted. I'm sorry, SEMA, that's an acronym for Southeastern Massachusetts. G system. Those items will remain redacted, those volumes. And under Maine, the volumes that are currently redacted will remain redacted. The footnotes, footnote 3, right now, which is completely redacted, would be unredacted with the exception of the cap information and the floor. These are percentages, the cap percentage and the floor percentage, above and below the original capital cost, that are scattered through the next page of paragraph of footnote 3. And any decimals that represent those caps and floors. But those would be discrete numbers versus redacting the entirety of them.
Okay, so dollar amount that appears on the third line would be,
That dollar amount is public, and so, and I actually want to stop and discuss that point, because I think it's a point that is of interest to the commission. So, that dollar amount, which is public, and we believe it is public in other jurisdictions.
Which dollar amount?
Yeah, the $3.2 billion original cost capital amount. So on footnote 3, third line.
But the first line of that footnote is redacted.
No, would not be. The entirety of that footnote would be unredacted, except for those cost, cap, and floor percentages and decimals.
Which on the next page.
On the next page, exactly. So I know that there's been interest in making sure that the cost of the project is as much of the cost of the project as possible to be in the public record. And that capital dollar figure, we believe, is in the public record elsewhere and should be in Rhode Island. The negotiated rate, however, that we still would need protected represents more than the capital cost of the project, which is why that particular rate is very sensitive, and both Algonquin and National Grid would like to keep it protected. It includes other categories of costs like operations and maintenance costs and property taxes, et cetera, which go into that rate. And so by making sure that the commission understands that the $3.2 billion original capital cost is on the record, I just want to reiterate to the commission that's a substantial part of the cost of this project. And so while we are trying to keep the total costs protected, that figure is important to note is public. And so to the extent that anybody is interested in the cost of this project, both National Grid and Algonquin wants to make sure the commission is aware that a substantial amount of the cost of this project is on the public record and will remain on the public record.
so the total cost that ratepayers are going to be on the hook for, is that public?
That is not public. And that backs into that negotiated rate. So now what I'm trying to stress is that the capital costs are the majority of the cost of this project.
Sorry, it's not clear to me whether the introductory language in footnote 3 in the first line is redacted or unredacted.
Sure, unredacted. Unredacted,
So it's unredacted.
yes.
It's just the percentages and the decimal points, or is it the
Correct.
words before the decimal points and percentages?
Just the percentages and the decimal points. The next item I have is in section 8 on it's the most favored nations paragraph. It's after the footnotes. And the entire most favored nations paragraph will be unredacted except for a phrase in the third line of paragraph 8 sub A. It's right now the second sentence reads, in the event that pipeline enters into a long-term firm service agreement, sub I, prior to the in-service date of the project, for service on the project, or sub II, for a period of, the words after that, until the phrase under rate schedule ERS would be redacted. Everything else in that whole paragraph would be unredacted. I'm sorry? Exactly. Maybe approximately, yes. On the bottom of that page is, I'm sorry, yep. I'm sorry, so of course this is mentioned. And the most favored nations provision.
Yeah.
So that paragraph A is unredacted but for the phrase that we indicated. Sub B is unredacted, its relationship to future expansion.
Sorry, can you just slow down?
Sure, I apologize. Sub B is unredacted, and the phrase there is interrelationship to future expansion. Sub I on that page, those three sentences, those three lines are unredacted. As is the majority of the rest of paragraph sub I, with the exception of, there are volumes on the top of that page that would remain redacted. There's percentages in the second and third line that would remain redacted.
So is it just the, you said volumes, is it just the number or is it the whole phrase that starts with the number?
The volume, so it's the number and so in
In the thing that comes
that
after.
measure, exactly.
I got it.
In the second line, the percentage that's there would be, continue to be redacted, as would the identity of that first of the pipeline's stations that are referenced in this subsection. Line 3, essentially saying the percentage figure would be redacted, as with reference to that separate pipeline station. And then the third line up in the same subsection would read, I'll start from the fourth line up, this sub I. This is public. Less than customers negotiated reservation rate for storage and transportation service, or sub II, less than the rest of that clause. So the word or for the III would be redacted. The phrase or III less than would be unredacted. The rest of the clause is in comma for the word pipeline would remain redacted, and the rest of that sentence would be redacted. The rest of that page is unredacted, would be unredacted. As would the first 8 lines of the next page. Sub D, applicability footnote 8, unredacted. Sub DI, the first line would be unredacted. The second line would be unredacted to the words for firm service on or before. And then the phrase after that to the comma would remain redacted. After the common phrase, any provision in subparts sub A, sub II, and sub B will expire on unredacted. Then the remainder of the sentence will be redacted. In sub DII, that paragraph below where I just read would be unredacted. The next item identified by the memo is attachment F, which is the last page of the contract. And there's a chart that talks about, notes the description of various deadlines in the contract, the section of the agreement where it's referenced, the agreement provision, and the calendar deadline. The majority of that would remain redacted with the exception of the first line, which talks about end of primary term. And so that first row all the way across would be unredacted, but the remaining rows would remain redacted.
So why is the second column redacted? Without, if nothing else is going to be public, that just says that just identifies the sections of the contract, doesn't it? I don't recall the sections being redacted with the headers.
I'm looking back at that right now. That may have been inadvertent, and I tend to agree that as long as those headers unredacted, I imagine that can be unredacted. But let me check that with my client, it'll be in the updated filing.
So you're gonna check on
So then I think we're moving to the GJW exhibits.
I don't have those. Oh. Before we move on, can I just
Yes.
ask you a question? On pages 5 through 7, what like the headline connection
At the very beginning of the agreement.
is? Yes, on page, both the original and the copy at page 5 under service agreement.
Yes.
I don't think we went over those, but it looks like that some information has been redacted.
Sorry, 1 second. That's true, we started on page 8 per the memo. I apologize. So, Council Q is correct. Information on that page which is currently redacted would be unredacted. Page 5, sorry, page 5. The information on page 6 would continue to be redacted, with the exception of in sub 5, it says specifies a storage primary point or receipt from storage to be effective on the phase. The number 4 is currently redacted, that would be unredacted. But the remaining volume information on that page would remain redacted. Um, on page 7, there are volumes in sub 3 and sub 4 on the top of page 7 that would remain redacted, but the rest of the page would be unredacted.
So for Roman numeral 7. Yeah.
Correct. When you're ready, I can move on to the GJW business.
On page 9, if you do that. At the very end of the page, after primary term extension.
That would remain redacted. That first sentence, Madam Chair, up to the phrase "customer may" on page 10 would remain redacted. As would, just for clarity, after the phrase "customer may," down to the phrase "expiration of the primary term," that would be unredacted. Then the phrase after the phrase "expiration of the primary term" through the end of the sentence, that would be remain redacted. And then the last sentence would be unredacted.
Then where are we going?
Going to GJW 1 and 2. I did not provide extra copies of those to the bench, because we can talk based on what's before you in the record. So the easier one first, Schedule GJW2, which we did follow on an unredacted basis, we will unredact. The confidential information there is basically in the underlying assumptions that went into that exhibit, which we will continue to seek protected treatment for if and when they were filed. I'm not even sure if they maybe have been already. But the actual results can be unredacted. And they have been unredacted in GJW3, and so they should have been unredacted here also. So Schedule GJW1, which, and this discussion plays into the next category, which is ratepayer impact in Leary's exhibits. So the issue here is, hold on, I need one right. In this exhibit, this is the results of Black & Veatch's net benefits analysis of this pipeline. And the annual net benefits levelized and at the present value of such net benefits are on the public record. The total benefits, the annual benefits, and the benefit to cost ratio are redacted. The reason why they're redacted is because we need to protect the annual costs and total cost columns. And so in isolation, the annual benefits and total benefits data could be on the public record. So this is all about a math exercise that we needed to protect the annual benefits and total benefits columns and the benefit to cost ratio. The annual costs and total costs, through a math exercise with information in the public record, if information in Leary's exhibits are revealed, can back into that negotiated rate. And so that's what the issue is here, and why the benefits columns and the benefit to cost ratio columns are redacted in GJW1, why the New England levelized costs in Leary's exhibit 2, with regard to her rate calculation, and the National Grid levelized costs are redacted. Because if those are revealed, given the volumes that are on public record, given Rhode Island's share of costs, which is 7.2% of the overall costs, given that that's in the public record, and given the methodology for the discount rate that we use, which is a 7.06% discount rate, which is in the public record, those variables, when put into a net present value formula, can get you back to the negotiated rate. And so that's why the GJW1 benefits information is protected, and that's why Ann Leary's levelized cost information is also protected, as would be the individual components of the bill impacts that are in her exhibits. The overall net benefits are public, and it's a negative number because the company believes that this contract will reduce cost to customers. It's the components of that credit that are protected, again, because you can back into the negotiated rate if the information was otherwise in the public record.
So a little different, but in, and there's a slight typo in Ms. Leary's IPUC numbers 2165, which is AEL1. You might want to just check the statutory site there.
Thank you very much.
On just, and I don't think anybody needs to turn to this, it's just, so in the response, in the company's response to Division 1-12, which asks for the all-in cost, capital cost, and the attachment's listed as confidential. So first, just to clarify, that's something that Mr. Keogh could share with in-house legal counsel, correct?
Attachment 12 that we have on top, it says highly sensitive confidential.
So if all of that is highly, I mean, the cover letter does have the indication of the highly sensitive. But I guess my question, my broader question is, if these are for illustrative purposes, so it's illustrative recourse reservation rate calculation, a summary of illustrative commodity and fuel rates. If they're illustrative, why are they confidential? Because usually when we ask for illustrative things, they're not specific. And so why would something like that be confidential?
And I'm happy to go back and double check. I'm just looking at the question for a minute. But I acknowledge the premise of your question. And so if possible, I might have to go back to the client to double check. Give me 1 moment. So the question, this is my speculation. The question asks for the estimated all-in cost. I have a feeling that the information that's provided to us, I acknowledge it says illustrative. My instinct is it's not as illustrative as it is. It's an estimate, and so I'm assuming that's why the client marked it illustrative. But I believe the costs that are in there are based on what they, again, that breakdown of the negotiated rate. But I'm happy to double check. I don't want to rest on that without double checking with the client.
I would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And if there's anywhere else where there were illustrative filings, if you could double check on those.
Absolutely.
May I ask a question? I think that's a question.
Are you sure you're looking at the public information?
I do dig into the models. I just like that. If the capital cost was public, right?
It is, and we're noticing that it's been redacted in response to the visual control. That can get redacted, and we will redact.
So, in any rates, or say schedule GJW1,
Yes.
is it impossible to break out just the capital cost part of this?
I think it is. I think that's correct. So that's why revealing the capital costs does not allow you to back into the negotiated rate. The total costs, however, would allow you to back in.
So could you, though, in these cases, have the annual capital cost broken out from the annual total cost?
As an exhibit,
Yeah.
I can, if you want to ask a rec request, Mr. Bianco, information request, I'm happy to go back to the client and have them try to.
So what's your question? I didn't
Yeah,
hear you.
okay, so in terms of GJW-1, to the extent that capital costs are public, and there is such a thing as an annual capital cost, part of the total cost as public is charged.
Okay.
Chairperson Curran, looking at what they've provided as a revised redacted version, is this more in line with what you had in mind when we were reviewing the proprietary information?
Absolutely.
So I think that this is probably important going forward.
Yes.
And then if there's anything that's been filed already that would now be public because of the changes that were made, I think that revised filings would be important to come in. And then we're going to check on attachment F in that second column. And then also on that other issue that we talked about
Yes.
before.
Absolutely.
I think they've gone through everything that had been pointed out, and
Can I ask one clarifying question? It has to do with something in here that, in the agreement. Shoot.
Just make sure you look at the public one.
Yeah, in the original filing on Schedule TJB JE1, page 49 of 67, it's a letter from Spectre Energy Partners to National Grid, signed by William T. Norton, the president. It says, by this transmittal letter, Algonquin Gas Transmission LLC, Algonquin, and the Narragansett Electric Company, DBA National Grid, Narragansett, are implementing a negotiated rate applicable to service under the above referenced rate schedule ERS service agreement. In the second paragraph, it says, after execution of this letter by both Algonquin and Narragansett, Algonquin shall file a statement of negotiated rates with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission containing rate-related provisions identical to those provisions in the attached pro forma statement of negotiated rates in accordance with Section 46 of the General Terms and Conditions of the Algonquin Tariff. I'm just wondering, are they filing the rate that they're marking confidential on this docket with FERC? And if so, is it sent in with a request for confidentiality to FERC?
As I sit here, I can't tell you the answer to that. It seems to me the letter says that will happen someday, that will be filed with FERC.
Well, no, it says after the execution of this letter, which has been countersigned by both parties, and the latter date, the date is June 17, 2016.
And it is in fact after June 17 as we sit here today, and it will be 10 years from now after June 17 as well.
okay, so could you find out when that date was or will be filed, and whether or not it was filed subject to some sort of confidentiality, or if it won't be filed for another 5 years, you could let us know that too.
And will we know if it's going to be receiving confidential treatment at FERC?
I thought I asked them to.
I'm sorry, I was talking. My fault.
Council, for what it's worth, and obviously Council President can understand, the approval of these agreements at the state level are going to be conditions of FERC approving these at the FERC level. So my instinct is the sequence would be approval of contract at the states, then FERC, and then obviously if the rates are approved at the state level, if the contracts are approved at the state level, the rate in those contracts. Whether they're confidential at that point, I don't know. Obviously, we'll find out. But there's a likelihood that nothing's been filed yet.
Well, that would be good to know, though.
Yes.
We're just checking on we already have something set up where we could decide the motion on the regular.
For this open meeting. Week. Yeah. So you need to pick the rainy day.
Checkers on the record.
Oh, she's
Should we go underground and find out what's going to rain in the vacation?
I think you need to. I think you need to find out when it's gonna rain next week, and that's the day that we.
I think I have to Christmas also fires that.
What, I told them they have to pick the you have to pick the rainy day for the open meeting.
That's right. I'm not going to do anything.
You probably did. I thought you guys would make the decision today, so. Oh, we don't want to go back on. Would not do it Monday. Monday is my perpetual day off. Never work next Monday. Ever.
Tomorrow?
We can't do it tomorrow. We don't have enough time to schedule it for the meeting. Unless we were to continue the hearing until tomorrow and we were to make the decision.
How would
Recess and
that one,
hearings
that's
tomorrow.
now in Germany.
You guys represent public bodies, and we have.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I can have it, we can decide tomorrow.
Why don't you announce it here in the room, when it's gonna be and what time? Let's continue till then.
So,
Okay, so now we can go back. up.
I'm sorry, Tim, just, we are in hearings in Massachusetts tomorrow. However, it's scheduled, I think, for a half day. So if it was possible, and I could have Jennifer show up if I can't be here, but if it was possible to potentially schedule this around 2 o'clock tomorrow, that could make it possible for me to come. So,
Which is fine, because we have a Long Island Power. Okay. So, Chairperson, I think what's before the commission right now is to adjourn for today and reconvene tomorrow, and 2 o'clock has been requested.
All right, then. We will do that. We'll adjourn until tomorrow.
Recess.
Sorry, recess, right. Oh, just take that back.
I don't expect that to.
Right. We are going to recess this hearing until tomorrow, Wednesday, the 17th of August at 2:30 for decision on the motion. Anything further? Thank you very much. Thank you. We're in recess.
yes.
It is one message, yes?
Yes.